The elf shard in my mind is telling me that you may be curious about The Way of Edan by Philip Chase. What's up, everyone? Michael R. Schulteis here, author of the Rostaval Saga, which you can see, as always, on the shelf over here. Today I'm coming at you with my review of The Way of Edan by our very own Dr. Philip Chase. So I've had this book on a few TBR videos, and I finally completed it. And the holdup was simply that I was working on my own books and didn't do as much reading as I really wished that I had. So one other thing before we get started, like everybody on BookTube it seems, I know and greatly respect Philip Chase. He's a fantastic guy and a pillar of our community. And I can't help but think of him as a friend. So I'm still going to do my best to review this book fairly, but I want to be forthright. I think sunlight is the best disinfectant, and we just want to be honest about these things. As usual, I'll break this down into characterization, plot, world building, and then I'll give it an overall rating, and I'll wrap up by saying, who is this book for, and who is it not for? So we have a multiple point of view epic fantasy, we have different characters, and what kind of unites them all, what the overarching story here is this holy war that's about to break out between the followers of the Way of Edan in the kingdom of Torlund, and then the rest of the world, essentially. I had a strong kind of 9th, 10th century Europe vibe. More about that later. So our characters, we have Dayraven, a young man from a small village who, stop me if you've heard this before, has a bit of a magical something going on with him. I'm going to be vague here. We don't want to spoil anything. And he goes on a great adventure. Sound familiar? I found Dayraven charming. And yes, this is an original take on the classic fantasy story of the young man from a humble background, great adventure. But I just found him so relatable and such a great character in every way. Dayraven's story really worked for me. His desire to get back to where he's from, his desire to have a normal life, but a willingness and an ability to confront the circumstances that are arrayed against him. And he does this with the help of a truly charming secondary character, Imhar, his family's bondman, slave. But the two are friends, and a bit of a Frodo and Sam thing going on here, but again, it feels very original. They both feel like very beautifully realized characters, and I really enjoyed the camaraderie and just the friendship between them. So this is a good part of the story, and it really sold the book for me. It worked very well. Then we have Sequara. Sequara is a sorceress. I think that's probably a fair description. She uses the magic in this world, which is very much based on being able to understand the kind of the energy and the life force in other things. And her character is fantastic. She's very sympathetic. She's trying to make an alliance, build an alliance structure, because the island kingdom that she's from they figured out that, hey, Torlund is on the warpath. The only hope to stop them is build an alliance against them, and then perhaps we can stop them, stop their huge armies and the power that they have at their disposal. So Sequara's character worked very well for me. I thought, here we have a lady who's intelligent, has a strong sense of duty and mission and purpose, and is trying to confront some challenging realities. And she's good at what she does, but it all feels very earned. We also get point of view perspectives from other characters. We get more than one of the priests of the Way of Edan. And what we find out is that the High Priest Bledla really is a true believer. He's a fanatic. And his character worked very well for me too, because I got that he was very conflicted, feels like he's not a very holy person, despite being the head of this religion. I think this is very much to Philip Chase's credit. This tells me that he understands extreme religious zeal. It doesn't feel like a cartoon caricature at all. It feels like a real person. And yeah, guess what? having these beliefs, it exacts a very real cost, a toll on you. And I felt that here. And it was very, very, very well done indeed. And we get another priest too, who's a bit more of a worldly fellow. And that was very interesting, because you get to see that these guys are not all a monolith. These are real people in what feels like a very real organization. So the characterization for me is an across-the-board win. It's very solid, and it really helped to make this book the profoundly charming story that it really is. So plot is another strength here. You have a great mixture of some exciting developments, and there's some action, and there's enough kind of slow burn development, characterization, giving the story time to breathe. I think the plot was very deftly handled, and really another area where this story really shines for me. World building. Let's talk world building. I mentioned the magic. I think the magic feels very original and very adds to the story in wonderful ways. It's based on understanding other living things, and then if you understand what's going on with somebody, you can maybe work at their emotions or at their perception of things. And it's an interesting example of empathy and, in some cases, actual mind control. So the magic is very well done, and I thought it added a lot to the story. On the whole, the theme of religious warfare, the Christian analog against the essentially pagans, made me think of the 8th or 9th century Carolingian Franks, or even the 10th century Ottonian Germans. So the world building was just superb. I love that he not only has different lands and peoples, but he thinks about the interaction. Like, okay, well, this land had, these people went over here, and there was this migration and this mixture, and there's histories, and there's legends, and there's myths, and there's songs and poems and stories, and it all feels like a beautifully realized world that actually breathes. You will feel that the world itself is a living thing. And I think you get that kind of world building. You can't put a price tag on that. It's just superlative. So what to rate it? Well, I'm landing on 4.5 out of 5 stars. This is a very, very good book. And an astonishing debut. Let's switch gears now and talk about who is this book for, and who is it not for. If you like traditional fantasy, Tolkien, of course, but, Terry Brooks, Tad Williams, David Eddings. This book is for you. Pick it up yesterday. It is fantastic. You're going to feel very much at home. At the same time, it's original. It's a very novel story. And I think you'll like that aspect too. It's not just retreading what you've read before. Philip is a fresh new voice breathing life into traditional fantasy, updating it for us in the here and now. And if that appeals to you, go get this book. I'll add that if you enjoy more modern fantasy, but maybe you're kind of tired of the grimdark, you're tired of the so-called gray on black morality, protagonists who are morally compromised or ambivalent or whatever, maybe you want to return to something that has some of those older themes of just protagonists you can root for, decent guy, decent gal, and then the people that they're opposed to really are fairly bad people when all is said and done. But with a modern twist on it, because there is some complexity there, and you get into that. If that appeals to you, again, pick this book up. It's absolutely for you. So I'm going to summarize who is this book for by saying I think that this book is going to have an enormous potential audience among people who like epic fantasy. If you like epic fantasy, just give this book a try. I don't think you'll be disappointed at all. Alright, so who is this book not for? Well, maybe you really like grimdark. You like some of the darker fantasy. This is not that. Maybe you want dark fantasy. Now, dark fantasy is not the same as grimdark. Dark fantasy has more horror aspects. think R. Scott Baker. This book may not be the best fit for you in that case, if that's what you're looking for, in your next read anyway. Also, if you like a lot of adult content, if you really want to see a lot of that, probably not the book for you. There is some, but it's not a great deal. On the whole, again, I think many fantasy fans are going to really enjoy this book. So if The Way of Edan sounds like the epic fantasy adventure that you've been craving, and you want that mix of traditional fantasy with a bit more of an updated contemporary aspect in some ways, then do check it out. I'll link it below. And hey, don't forget to like and subscribe. Really helps us to grow the channel when you do. Thank you so much for watching, and I will hope to catch you on the next video.